Hey there, my name's Paul, and this episode is part of a series called Glimpses of Jesus. We're on a journey through the Old Testament. The aim is to examine the main events and ask how they point us to Jesus and salvation in Him. We're at the start of the second book of the Bible, the book of Exodus. God's people, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the people of Israel are in Egypt and have been there for around 400 years. It's the 1500s BC, and Israel are not being treated well. Early in 2024, Kitty Harrison found herself balanced precariously on a tiny ledge on the eastern slope of Trevan, a mountain in North Wales. She'd braved the Grade 1 scramble to scatter her dad's ashes at the top, and slipped on the way down. The mountain rescue team were quickly dispatched. When they spotted her, a member of the team abseiled down and brought her to safety. What's the book of Exodus about? It's a rescue story. It's God abseiling into history and bringing his people Israel out of slavery. In chapter 1, we see the predicament they face. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, has turned Israel into a slave workforce to build the cities of Pithom and Ramesses. But it gets worse. Pharaoh felt so threatened by the Israelites that he passed a law to kill all Israelite newborn baby boys. Exodus tells us how God steps in and turns the situation around. In Exodus chapter 3, God appears to a man called Moses. Moses has quite the backstory. He's born in chapter 2 and ends up 3 months old in a basket hidden among the reeds on the Nile. Pharaoh's daughter finds him and promptly adopts him. 40 years later, Moses runs away from Egypt and into the wilderness to the east. Why? Pharaoh discovers he had killed an Egyptian slave boss who was beating on an Israelite slave. In the wilderness, Moses meets a man called Jethro and marries Jethro's daughter, Zipporah, and becomes a shepherd. By the time we get to Exodus 3, another 40 years has passed by. Moses is 80 years old. He's out with the sheep and has an extraordinary encounter with God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire within a bush. As Moses looked, he saw that the bush was on fire, but was not consumed. Now, who appears to Moses? We're told the angel of the Lord, but who is he? An angel is a created heavenly being, but it soon becomes obvious that the person speaking to Moses is much more than this. Note what he says in Exodus chapter 3 and verse 6. Then he continued, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The person in the bush is God himself. So why is he called the angel of the Lord? The best explanation comes from an understanding of what the Bible teaches about the essential nature of God as one God who is 3 persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. As with other appearances of God in the Old Testament, it's likely this is God the Son. The word angel means messenger. He is the Son who comes with a message from the Father. And that's not just conjecture. In Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 26 we're told, for he, that's Moses, considered reproach for the sake of Christ to be greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, since he was looking ahead to the reward. Christ here is God the Son, who would come as Jesus, and it's Christ who Moses has his eyes fixed on as he leads the people out of Egypt. God the Son is not an absentee part of God, who only turns up in the New Testament. No, here he is, appearing to Moses. And what does the angel of the Lord do? Look at verse 2 again. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire within a bush. Have you ever met anyone for coffee? You meet up, you have a chat, you drink coffee. You're there in the same space together. True, this isn't as informal as that. God says to Moses, do not come closer, he said. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. God is holy, and Moses needs to remember that. Yet here, God talks with Moses. They share space together. This is incredible. In the firelight, Moses sees God. What do we notice about God in this encounter? What's he like? Immediately we observe he's more than a force. He's a person. He's someone that Moses and Israel can know. That's something important for us to grasp too. Christianity is more than buildings. It's more than ceremonies. It's more than religious activities. At the heart is a personal God, a God we can know through his Son, Jesus Christ. What else can we see about God here? As we overhear God talking with Moses, we discover that God is a caring God. In Exodus chapter 3 and verse 7 we read, "Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt, and have heard them crying out because of their oppressors. I know about their sufferings." Now, it can be helpful to express how we feel, no matter who we're talking to. We might shout it to the world, or say it quietly in a hidden place. I once heard of someone who would go to the woods and pray out his concerns over a bunch of stones. Nobody heard, but he felt better. Praying to God is different though. He hears, he cares, and he has compassion. Compassion that leads to action. Exodus chapter 3 and verse 8. "And I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them from that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey." God is not some heartless power in the universe. He's a God who cares. Israel are struggling and grieving. What a difference it would have made to them to know that God has seen their plight and has compassion. God, the one who runs the universe, is coming to save them. And this is true of God today. The Bible tells us we live in a broken world. Humanity is separated from God because of sin. God's eternal judgment is on the horizon. Things are desperate. God is not unmoved. No, he came in the person of his Son to provide salvation through the cross. And today, he invites people everywhere to come and know him, to be forgiven their sins, to experience his presence and protection in their lives, and know the hope of a better future. God is a caring God. What else do we see about God? He's eternal and unchanging. In Exodus chapter 3 and verses 13 and 14 we read, "Then Moses asked God, 'If I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What should I tell them?' God replied to Moses, 'I am who I am.' This is what you are to say to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" The name God reveals is a remarkable one. I am who I am. This descriptor, I am, is the basis for the name we find time and time again for God in the Old Testament. It's 4 letters in the Hebrew, YHWH, and we believe it's pronounced Yahweh. It's the name translated in our English Bibles by the word Lord in capital letters, and it's the name that's used in Exodus chapter 3 and verse 15. God also said to Moses, "Say this to the Israelites, the Lord, Yahweh, I am, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered in every generation." But what does Yahweh mean? Among other things, it means God's eternal. When God reveals himself, he doesn't say, "I was," and he doesn't say, "I will be." He says, "I am." Wherever you go in the timeline of history, even falling off the beginning or the end, God is. He's eternal. And as eternal God, he's unchanging. Note what he says at the end of verse 15. "This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered in every generation." As the generations go by, history changes. Circumstances change. Life changes. But God does not. His name remains the same. His being, his person remains the same. Why does this matter? In Exodus, God is stepping into history to rescue his people. But is this just a one-off favour from God while he's in a good mood? No, this is God as he always will be. For Israel, this meant he's a God they could trust, not only at the time of Exodus, but beyond. He's a God they could call on any day. And the same is true for us several thousand years later. Life may look different, but spiritual realities are still the same. The devil is against the Church of Jesus. We live in a world that doesn't want to hear the good news of Jesus. Our hearts are prone to sin and rebellion. Death is the incessant enemy that will not leave us alone. Who is God today? The same as he was in the time of Exodus, a God who cares and can do the impossible. The same as he was 2,000 years ago when he came in the person of his Son. A God who loves us so much he gave his Son to die to save us. A God whose power is so great that death and sin could not defeat him. He's a God we can trust with our lives. There's one more thing about God I want to mention here. That's his commitment to his plan of salvation. In Exodus chapter 3 and verse 10 we read, "Therefore go, I am sending you to Pharaoh, so that you may lead my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Note, God's plan involves Moses. God chooses Moses to be his servant. God chooses Moses to lead his people. God chooses Moses to speak to the Israelite leaders. It's Moses God uses to announce each plague. It's Moses God uses to save his people. And God is committed to this way of salvation. In Exodus 4, Moses pleads with God to send someone else, but God will have none of it. In verses 13 to 15 we read, Moses said, "Please, Lord, send someone else." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, "Isn't Aaron the Levite your brother? You will speak with him and tell him what to say." God gives Moses a little slack. Aaron can do the speaking for him, but Moses must lead. Here, God gives one way for Israel to be saved, through Moses, God's servant. Israel need to grasp this, and their failure to do so will get them into trouble on their journey out of Egypt. The same is true in the ultimate rescue mission of the Bible, except it's not Moses, it's Jesus. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, God's man, his chosen Saviour, his anointed King, the one who came, who lived a perfect life, who died for sin and rose from the dead. There's no other way to God. As Jesus put it in John chapter 14 and verse 6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Who is God? He's personal. He's someone you can know. He's caring. He's someone who sees our needs, ultimately our desperate need to be saved from sin. And he's someone willing to step in. He's an eternal and unchanging God, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And how can you know him? One way, through Jesus Christ.